Yo! Video games.
What up, dudes? It's Matt here from YoVideogames. Normally, I try to stick pretty close to the name this channel represents, but every so often something comes up that I like to discuss that isn't video game related. Usually something involving animation, and this is no different. Now, I have done many reviews of DC animated films in the past, and people generally seem to like them. And with one of the most infamous comic stories being recently adapted into a film, I posed the question to you guys on social media, and the response was almost unanimous to make this video. Now, I feel the need to apologize right off the bat for the footage of this video. As you can already see, it's all gameplay footage from the Arkham series, and there is a good reason for that, I swear. In the past, when I have done videos talking about animated shows or films, we have gotten the dreaded copyright strikes. No matter how edited, zoomed in, cut up, or tampered with the footage has been. And since we should all be familiar with how responsive YouTube is to this, it's simply safer to just have game footage instead. With all that out of the way, let's get right down to it. The Killing Joke is a mostly faithful animated retelling that, when it sticks to its source material, is pretty great. Kevin Conroy is a delight as always, and more importantly, Mark Hamill delivers a truly exceptional take on the Joker. We all know and love his previous roles as the Joker, but here it is simply at another level. Some of this is in part to the fantastic writing it is based off of, but a lot of it is also due in part to the skill of the performance. Hamill not only provides a chilling and shocking rendition of this character, but effortlessly bounces between timelines to a character that looked and sounded much different before he became the Clown Prince of Crime. It is unfortunate the world we live in places so little recognition in the voice acting field, but if you do see the value and skill in voice acting, and you love the characters and want a deeper and even thought-provoking look at this world and characters of the graphic novel, you owe it to yourself to watch this. The Killing Joke is an uncompromising adaptation of the graphic novel, at least the second half or so of the film. The one-shot comic is simply too short as is for a feature-length movie, so the idea the filmmakers here had was to include a prequel storyline before the events of the comic. That idea makes sense, and in the comic of the character of Barbara Gordon is little more than a victim that is used for some very dark stuff. This was the reasoning behind having a 30-minute prequel focused and narrated by Batgirl herself. However good the intentions might have been, it just doesn't come together. A big reason for this is that the story is entirely disconnected from the actual adaptation. Perhaps this was done to avoid sloppy and cringy made-up connections to a work that the screenwriters had no hand in originally, but whatever the reason, it feels disjointed at best. What we have is a 30-minute episode that would have played better on a CW show than something that feels naturally part of this storyline. There is no Joker, and really no Commissioner Gordon in the prequel story, two of the central characters in the actual novel. What we have is a story about a young narcissistic nephew of a mob boss who stages a coup on his uncle's empire, and Batgirl and Batman in the middle of it. Batman does his usual thing, and when he notices the villain taking a liking to drawing Batgirl out, he tells her to stay off the case, which results in an argument, a fight, and eventually public sex on a rooftop, in a span of about 3 minutes or less. It's sloppy, it's awkward, and to a straight male, it's painted a really poor representation of female characters. Not only does The Killing Joke deserve a better introduction to its narrative, Batgirl alone deserves better. So what I'm going to do now is tell you my what-if take on the situation. If I was a writer for WB Animation and it was tasked to me to write a Batgirl prequel story to The Killing Joke. Okay, so we start with the release of a major criminal from Blackgate, or Arkham, someone say like the Penguin, who is acquitted on lack of evidence or by the fact that he was arrested under vigilante justice. Instead of Batman's perspective, we see Batgirl's, and how she observes Batman's anger and resentment to yet another known criminal being set loose again in Gotham. She tails Batman and Gordon, who both have no faith in Penguin's innocence, and it isn't long before Cobblepot is back in the weapons smuggling game, and Batman and Gordon attempt to bust a deal. However, Penguin assumed this all along, and the two walk right into his trap, which ends with an injured Gordon and a fleeing Batman. As the escalation mounts, the tension between Batman and the police department is higher than ever, as Bullock or Montoya accuse Batman of standing in the way of justice, as every time Gordon attempts to throw the book at criminals, Batman's involvement stands in the way. Batman searches desperately to find the missing weapons Penguin has smuggled into Gotham, while Batgirl tries her best to console and help Batman. We get a montage of both failed and successful busts, but the constant battle leaves Batman wearied, to the point where a confrontation leaves Batman himself injured and unable to leave Wayne Manor. Barbara then comes to visit, but finds that Bruce is determined to go back out despite his injuries. Through the montage before, we saw that Batman has been losing his edge and his calm. And in an exchange between the two, Bruce tells Barbara that she doesn't know what it's like to lose everything in an instant and how the city needed someone to save them. Barbara then tells Bruce that everyone needs to be saved at some point, and that Bruce needs to let someone save him before he goes as crazy as the villain he hunts. We get a tasteful kiss and embrace with a panning away shot. Some more time passes, and we see that Batman succeeds in bringing in Penguin, and Gordon recovers from his clipped shoulder. We learn from Batgirl's narration that Batman had begun distancing himself from her over this time, and it ends with them having a rooftop talk. Batman admits he doesn't know how to handle someone loving him again, and that he is afraid of the implications a relationship could have for both him and her. Barbara doesn't quite understand, but agrees to give him some space, and that wherever their future takes them, she will be there for him. Batman thanks her, and she asks what for, to which he replies, for saving him from falling into the abyss, and that he clearly knows now what separates them from the insane criminals they bring in. Barbara decides that she is going to hang up her cowl for the time being, and that the Cobblepot case is closed, and to focus on her higher education. The ending of the segment leaves Batgirl sad but hopeful for the future, and that life is a strange series of events where nothing is predictable. This would later serve as a narrative callback to the Joker's plot in The Killing Joke, as he ponders the randomness of life and how clinging to sanity is true madness. It would also serve to bring Batman to the brink, along with Gordon at the end of the story, as just as Batman was about to begin to feel love for another, the Joker nearly steals that away from him and Gordon. In my mind, this would serve to punctuate the narrative of The Killing Joke rather than feel like a wholly disconnected add-on, one where Batman has the charm and depth of a gargoyle statue, and Batgirl is a hormonally charged teenager. Again, I understand the reasoning behind the added prequel, but I personally think it was just done all kinds of wrong. If you do view the movie on Blu-ray or Netflix, I would highly suggest skipping to the start of the actual book segment. As it stands now, you can watch one without the other and miss absolutely nothing. It's almost as if Zack Snyder wrote the opening subplot. Either way, you should absolutely see this film to see what truly great voice acting is. If you don't like my made-up scenario, that's fine too. I'm not gonna be mad or call you a pussy or anything like that. That would be super unprofessional of me, a guy making a video for YouTube. Let me know what you guys think, and if you would like to see more videos about things like this that may not always be video game related. See you on the channel. Later, dudes!